Charlie was in his garage, sleeves rolled up, working carefully on the small plane that sat in the middle of the space. The aircraft wasn't just any machine. It was a gift from his wife Sarah, given to him on his last birthday, and he'd been pouring his heart into repairing and upgrading it ever since. His focus was interrupted when Sarah entered, dressed smartly for travel. She reminded him that she would be leaving soon for a major business conference in London. With a smile, she extended an invitation for him to come along, something she had suggested more than once. But Charlie shook his head again, insisting he couldn't take time off because his workload was piling up. Sarah sighed but didn't press him, giving him a kiss before heading out the door. Not long after, Charlie left the comfort of his garage and drove to CIA headquarters. Passing through the tight security didn't intimidate him. After all, most of the sophisticated scanners and checkpoints had been designed by him. Once inside the building, he made his way to the decryption and analysis department, where he spent most of his days. But before he could settle in properly, a notification popped up on his screen. The message was from Inquilin, a mysterious figure he had secretly communicated with for years. This anonymous contact specialized in leaking valuable intelligence, and Charlie had benefited more than once from their information. This time, however, Inquilin gave him a warning. The documents on offer carried the potential to endanger the entire CIA. Intrigued and cautious, Charlie tried to guess Inquilin's current location. He suggested Istanbul, but the other party ignored his guess and cut the conversation short. Determined, Charlie turned to decrypting the data files Inquilin had provided. But to his frustration, the code resisted all his usual methods. For someone renowned as a cryptography genius, this was unusual and irritating. After taking a quick lunch break, he returned to his desk only to get a call from Sarah. She told him she had already landed safely in London. Charlie, however, had already been aware of her location. He had been secretly tracking her movements. Their conversation was brief. Charlie was too distracted by the encrypted files gnawing at his mind. Later, still struggling, he carried his computer into a restricted section of the building that housed more advanced systems. Using the enhanced tools there, Charlie finally managed to crack open the files. What he uncovered left him shaken to his core. The documents revealed that a drone strike had been deliberately disguised as a terrorist suicide bombing. The attack had killed 150 people, including French special forces and Danish Marines. And the news media had been fed false information. Even worse, the entire operation had been orchestrated by none other than Chief Moore, Charlie's direct superior at the CIA. That evening at home, Charlie tried phoning Sarah, but she didn't answer. He left her a voicemail, his voice betraying a tinge of unease. The following morning, he arrived at work only to be met by Moore, who escorted him to the office of the newly appointed CIA Director, O'Brien. There, O'Brien delivered crushing news. A terrorist assault had just occurred at a London hotel, and Sarah was among the victims. Charlie refused to accept it, desperate to call her himself. But Moore switched on a television broadcast, showing live coverage of the tragedy. The reporter described how 4 armed attackers stormed the hotel, seizing hostages and killing 2 of them. When Moore followed up by showing Charlie the hotel's surveillance footage, the nightmare became undeniable. He watched, helpless as the chaos unfolded on screen, and saw Sarah caught in the violence. Back at his home, Charlie found his house surrounded by reporters clamoring for a statement, while police officers struggled to keep them back. A sympathetic friend slipped him inside away from the media circus, but grief quickly turned into suspicion. The next day at CIA headquarters, Charlie confronted Moore and Supervisor Caleb. He voiced disbelief that the terrorists could have slipped through London's countless surveillance cameras and roadblocks. Moore insisted the matter was under investigation, but Caleb bluntly dismissed Charlie, sending him home. Soon, Charlie was summoned to collect Sarah's body and belongings at the airport. Bringing her suitcase home, he broke down completely when he discovered inside it a gift she had purchased for him before her death. Grief-stricken yet restless, he returned to work, channeling his anguish into determination. He used the restricted computer system to hack into the hotel's security feeds and nearby street cameras. Methodically, he reconstructed the sequence of events. The 4 attackers had stolen a vehicle in East London before infiltrating the hotel through the service entrance. They were highly professional, wiping away fingerprints and DNA traces as they moved. Their supposed meeting with representatives of an Indonesian investment firm went sideways. escalating into violence when a security guard intervened. Gunfire broke out, leaving one guard dead and another gravely injured. Security alerted the police, prompting the terrorists to panic. In desperation, they seized hostages from a conference room. Sarah had been taken when she tried to help others escape. Using his skills, Charlie conducted voice and facial recognition analysis on the footage. He identified the 4 terrorists: Mishka, a Russian operative; Lawrence, an ex-South African Special Forces soldier turned arms dealer; Horst, a mercenary; and Gretchen, a former intelligence officer. When he presented these findings to Moore and Caleb, their lack of surprise revealed they already knew. They brushed him off again, suggesting he see a therapist, but Charlie refused to be sidelined. The next day, he smuggled a hidden chip through security by embedding it into his badge. Once inside, he copied classified files from a printer using a magnetic skimmer. He also printed hard copies for leverage. That night, sitting in a bar, he stared at a jukebox, his mind already racing with backup plans. Armed with evidence of Moore's covert crimes, including bombing a Syrian hospital and striking a Yemeni base full of Allied forces, Charlie confronted his superiors. He threatened to expose everything unless they met his demands. Full CIA field training, new identities, cash, weapons, and intelligence on his wife's killers. To raise the stakes, he claimed to have a dead man switch, an automatic system that would leak all the evidence if he failed to enter a code every 5 hours. Moore dismissed this as a bluff, but Caleb cautioned that they couldn't take the risk. Meanwhile, Charlie's real trick was subtler. He had planted a bug within the very documents he handed them. Training began under Colonel Henderson. On the shooting range, Charlie proved a poor marksman, struggling to hit targets except at close range. But in bomb-making exercises, his talent shone, astonishing Henderson with his speed and ingenuity. During identity reinforcement drills, Henderson pushed him hard, throwing him around physically while demanding he recite his new cover identity until he could do it under pressure. Despite progress, Henderson confronted him privately, pointing out that Charlie was not a killer at heart. To prove it, he handed Charlie a loaded pistol and told him to aim at his chest. Charlie's shaking hands betrayed him. He couldn't pull the trigger. Back at CIA headquarters, Caleb's team finally decrypted the CD Charlie had left behind. To their satisfaction, they discovered the dead man's switch was a fabrication. But as they celebrated, Charlie's bug transmitted everything back to him. When Moore realized the deception, he ordered Henderson to arrest Charlie. By then, Charlie had already escaped. His first stop was London, then Paris, where he began tracking Gretchen. He broke into her apartment, photographed her schedule, and discovered she frequented hospitals. Disguised as a doctor, Charlie later ambushed her during tests, exploiting her severe pollen allergies to pressure her into revealing Horst's location. But the plan went awry. Gretchen fought back, escaping into the street where fate intervened. A car struck her, killing her instantly. Horrified but pragmatic, Charlie took her phone before fleeing. The CIA, now aware of his actions, grew increasingly divided. Director O'Brien warned Moore to stop his unauthorized black ops, while Moore continued his secret maneuvers. Meanwhile, Charlie pressed on. With help from Inquilin, whom he finally met face-to-face in Istanbul and learned was a woman carrying on her late husband's hacker legacy, he hunted down the others. Together, they tracked Mishka to Madrid, where Charlie engineered his death by threatening to shatter a glass-bottomed rooftop pool. When Mishka scoffed, Charlie triggered cracks in the glass, sending the Russian plummeting to his death. Next came Lawrence. In Romania, Charlie lured him into a trap with fake arms deals, surrounding him with bombs and extracting information about Horst. Once Lawrence revealed Horst's Baltic seaport operations, Charlie left him to die in an explosion. Finally, Charlie closed in on Horst. He traced him to a yacht in Russian waters. Captured and mocked for his inability to kill face-to-face, Charlie seemed cornered, but he revealed he had hacked the yacht's CIA-controlled systems, steering it into Finnish territory. Surrounded by Finnish naval forces and Interpol, Horst and his men were arrested. In the aftermath, Director O'Brien held a press conference announcing the exposure of corrupt CIA officials and illegal operations. Moore and his collaborators were dismantled. Henderson privately congratulated Charlie, expressing pride despite everything. In the closing moments, Charlie visited Sarah's grave, laying his grief to rest. At home, he finally wheeled out the small plane he had been repairing for so long. Alone but resolute, he climbed aboard, took to the skies, and flew.